Fiesta Bowl, 4 o'clock, New Year's Eve. Hate the scheduling, but love the matchup. TCU versus Michigan. TCU, 200-1 national championship odds to start the year. I got a little stat for you. Those are the longest odds any college football playoff participant has ever had. Not to be outdone by far, Michigan was 50-1 to win the title at the beginning of the year. So they're the 4th longest odds ever. So the 1st and 4th longest national championship odds ever for playoff teams in this matchup here. And a generation ago, as we start to dive into this game and predict it, in this very building out in Glendale, Arizona, what did we see? We saw Oklahoma versus Boise State. And that was not the biggest upset in history, one of the very most consequential upsets in history. And for a number of reasons. So I'm certainly not saying if TCU wins this game, it's that kind of upset, but I am saying it's got that kind of vibe to it. Power 5 versus Power 5, whereas that wasn't. But it's an established blue blood program versus someone who's really new at the table. And with that in mind, what would a TCU win mean? Have you prepared your mind, by the way, for like Georgia TCU or Ohio State TCU in the national championship game? The answer is no, you have not. Let's ask ourselves if we need to prepare. Here's what I think I know. I think Michigan's going to be able to move the ball. I don't have many doubts about this. They're too good. Offensive line is too solid. Congratulations, Joe Moore Award for the 2nd year in a row for the University of Michigan. They are balanced, not just statistically, but philosophically. They're very, very balanced. Blake Corum is gone. Donovan Edwards is still there. I think that Ohio State game probably did wonders for J.J. McCarthy's confidence. These things I think I know. Here's what I want to know, though. Can TCU move it consistently? Because they average about 40 points, 41 points per game. 40.3 points per game this year. So they're 6th in FBS when it comes to offensive points per game. Their problem potentially is defensively. Michigan's 5th in total defense points allowed per game, 13.38. We went to the 2nd decimal place for you. That is stats and info when it comes playoff time. So classic irresistible force meeting the immovable object there. It's no different than Hogan Andre in 1987. What gives? Who gives? Are we watching this game at the end of the first quarter saying, oh, that's nasty, TCU's got 43 total yards. What's happening? They're getting stoned. Or are we watching saying, they got 190 yards in the first quarter. Boy, they're on pace to do what? Wow, they popped it to Quentin Johnson twice already. That's why we play the games, friends. That's why we don't let this decide it for us. We know Michigan's favored. We're going to go ahead and play it out anyway. TCU, I don't think, can get into this trap like Ohio State did of convincing themselves we got to stop the running game. Now, for them, it was we got to stop Blake Corum, which became we can't stop Donovan Edwards. You don't stop them. Let me just spoil that for you. You don't stop those running backs. They've got the kind of offensive line they have, and they've got the kind of skill at tailback and at quarterback, frankly, to where they will get their rushing yards on you. You can win a game and give up 163 yards on the ground. You can do that. It happens all the time. Do you play situationally good enough to win? Because here's the kind of stat I would really focus my gaze on if I was TCU. I wouldn't be so worried about the fact that Donovan Edwards ran it 216 versus Ohio State, 185 versus Purdue. His last 6 games, Donovan Edwards, 8.3 yards per carry. Oh, that's very impressive. And congratulations to him in all sincerity. Congratulations to him, because I remember talking about that kid National Signing Day last year and how big a pickup he was for Michigan. You're not wasting your time. Stars do matter. But that's not what I'd pay attention to. If I were TCU, I'd pay attention to the fact that I once played Texas this year. And Texas, we thought, had a really explosive offense. Texas was favored against us by over a touchdown. Texas was supposed to be the end of the line for our undefeated run. And instead, they scored 0 offensive touchdowns against us. And I am led to believe that them being 1 of 13 on 3rd down had a little bit to do with that. Run the ball on me. I'm not asking you to, but I expect you to. I need to beat you on third down. I frankly don't care what you do between the 20s. I trust my offense enough. I'm not going to have to hold you to 17 or 10 points like it was that day in Austin because, hey, if I'm TCU, my offense was nothing to write home about that day either. But if I can have not that level of success, but some success on third down, that's how Michigan's rushing statistics could get a little warped on you, and you still have it right there in the palm of your hands in the fourth quarter. Both of these teams are excellent second half teams. It did not work out that way for TCU against Kansas State. Necessarily in the Big 12 championship game. It did the first time they played them. But hey, here's the flip side of that coin. Michigan's been really good in the second half too. If you're listening on podcast, there are 6 games on the screen right now where Michigan either trailed at the half or led by 2 points, 1 point, 6 point. They ended up winning by 21, 24, 22, 35, 22, 21. So they've been a second half team too, which is why I don't always say this, but I really do think it's imperative TCU is the one that grabs the early lead here. And I don't necessarily mean, it's 7-0 with 13:38 to go in the first quarter. I just mean they need to be very, very multiple offensively in what they do because they've got to have the stun gun effect. They probably got to work the perimeter a whole lot. I think they've got the most underrated tailback in the postseason right now, but they've got to be able to be multiple. Get Quentin Johnson involved early. Get that tailback involved early. Get Max Duggan involved early because you got to score early. You cannot be getting to the half against Michigan and it's 13-10. It's tied up. I know what's happening in the second half. I know because I've watched these teams all year. Let's take a look at what the model thinks here because we already know what the Vegas number is. Right now it's Michigan minus 7.5. And as we start to take a look at this, and by the way, the model says 8, so it's a pretty tight line. I was at the semifinal last year where Michigan played Georgia, got beaten pretty soundly. I shared this story last week, I think. Should have brought the picture with me because it's the shame of it is it's right here on my phone. But I can't just show you the screen. That would be unprofessional. So there we are on the field. Michigan loses to Georgia. And all these dudes are standing there, all these young guys from Michigan. I'm standing off to the side, and J.J. McCarthy's standing right next to me. Donovan Edwards is standing right next to me. Corum, I think, had been there. He was standing right next to me. And they're just standing there watching Georgia. They're watching that confetti fall down. And they're not doing it way out in the open where they're looking for publicity. They're close to their tunnel. But they were just taking it in. And I remember looking and thinking, I really think these dudes are going to be back. I don't think that's the last time they're going to be on this platform, on this stage. Well, here they are again. I'm mentioning that anecdotally because I know they've only been once. But you talk to any coach and player who's played in this environment, they tell you there is no substitute for that experience. Everything about, not just the game's the least of it. This field's still the same dimensions, still 4 15-minute quarters, all that's the same. It's everything around it that's really new. And so when you've had the benefit of going through it and you're facing someone who hasn't, it matters. I think Michigan's going to win the game. I think Michigan's going to end up covering in the game. I believe this will be competitive for a little while. And I believe this is a worthy opponent for them. But the overall level of athlete and that offensive line that Michigan has, I think they're totally comfortable. If they don't pull away early, that's fine. They hardly ever do. But what they don't do early, they usually do eventually. Even against Ohio State, they even succumb to it. So the odds to win the national championship right now, Michigan's plus 290, TCU's plus 1,600, directly correlated, obviously, with the fact that Michigan's favored by over a touchdown in this game. I think last year matters, and I think that they are going to take this thing, and I think they're going to cover. I'm not calling blowout, but I am calling, and as it turns out, double-digit Michigan win. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video, and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me. That's how we keep this entire thing free.